Imagine stepping into a medieval courtyard just before dawn, the sky a pale wash of violet and rose, and hearing the echo of footsteps on cobblestones so worn they seem to whisper secrets of centuries past. You pause at the gargoyle-guarded archway of an ancient cathedral, its stones dark with moss, its stained glass windows catching those first fragile beams of light. And suddenly you ask yourself, what if none of this is quite real? What if the bells that toll each hour resonate not with the passage of time, but with an illusion so vast it spans 3 centuries? Welcome to the phantom time hypothesis, an idea as bold as it is unsettling, that between AD 614 and AD 911, nearly 300 years of European history were fabricated, slipped quietly into our calendars by unseen hands. In a quiet study lined with leather-bound tomes, let us begin at the source. It was the late 1700s when Johann Heinrich von Mädler, a German historian driven by curiosity, first noticed something amiss in the medieval chronicles he pored over by candlelight. He found gaps, days unaccounted for, records overlapping, and the lifespans of certain rulers stretching implausibly long. Pause and picture von Mädler hunched over vellum pages so fragile that the flicker of his candle threatened to reduce them to ashes. He jotted down dates, AD 820, AD 845, but between them, strange voids that seemed too neat to be mere accident. Over a century later, the German researcher Heribert Illig took up the torch. In 1991, he published his bold claim: those gaps were not the result of lost parchments, but of deliberate forgery. He argued that Emperor Otto III, driven by millennial zeal, conspired with Pope Sylvester II to retrofit history. They would rewrite charters, append fictitious kings to royal genealogies, and reorder annals so that the arrival of the year AD 1000 would coincide with Otto's reign, thereby cementing divine favor on his empire. Imagine a scriptorium at midnight, scribes in hoods dipping quills in ink, forging royal seals on blank parchments as thunder rumbles beyond the cathedral walls. Each stroke of the pen erases one more piece of reality, and inserts what they deemed more useful to their cause. But a theory of such magnitude demands evidence. First, consider architecture. Roman structures across Europe, baths in Trier, bridges over the Danube, betray no sign of the decay one would expect after centuries of wear, neglect, and reconstruction. Instead of patched stones or radically different building techniques, we find astonishing continuity in style and craftsmanship, as if those phantom centuries never passed at all. Then there is the coinage. Metal detectors in medieval sites yield piles of Carolingian-era coins, but a dearth of transitional currency between AD 614 and AD 911. Where should the bronze and silver of a vibrant 3th-century economy be? In tandem, dendrochronology, the art of dating wooden beams by tree rings, sometimes fails to show the neat, annual progression we anticipate. Trees felled for cathedral roofs in Bavaria date either side of the supposed lost centuries, but rarely within them, as if the forests themselves recorded a lull in human enterprise. And what of the written word? Chronicle after chronicle recounts wars, plagues, and coronations. Yet many of these manuscripts are copies of copies, with the earliest originals long vanished. When we cross-reference, the medieval document known as the Epitome is suspiciously thin between AD 700 and AD 900, as though entire chapters were excised before later monks recopied the text. As you absorb this, cast your mind to the calendar itself, the mechanism we trust to measure our lives. Nearly 2 millennia ago, Julius Caesar instituted the Julian calendar, adding leap days to align the solar year. But between 8 BC and AD 50, errors crept in. Priests inserted too many leap days, then too few, leaving the spring equinox adrift by nearly 10 days by the year AD 325. When the Council of Nicaea convened, they corrected the drift. But that correction only highlights how fragile timekeeping truly is. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and you find ecclesiastical authorities juggling multiple calendars: Byzantine, Alexandrian, even Islamic lunar reckonings. Try aligning these disparate systems, and slip-ups become inevitable. But what if some of those slip-ups were not mistakes at all, but intentional edits designed to conceal the inflation of years? Yet the phantom time hypothesis does not go unchallenged. Many historians contend that gaps in records are the natural consequence of turmoil. Viking raids, civil wars, and the dissolution of ancient libraries. They point to Chinese astronomical logs detailing solar eclipses in AD 790 and AD 865 with such precision that they could not have been dreamt up centuries later. Likewise, Islamic scholars in Baghdad recorded the transit of Halley's comet in AD 760 and AD 837, describing its trajectory across their sky in minute detail. To dismiss these as forgeries would require a conspiracy spanning continents, scribes in Samarkand and astronomers in Chang'an all complicit in a European ruse. Pause here and feel the weight of that notion. A conspiracy not just of men and women with quills, but of timekeeping itself, scrubbed and repainted in every corner of the known world. Then, consider the Maya. Their long count calendar, carved into stelae at Copan and Palenque, ticks forward in an unbroken sequence from the 1st century BC through the 10th century AD. If Europe's clocks were padded with phantom years, why do the stone records in the rainforests of Mesoamerica remain unaffected? Perhaps, critics say, the missing centuries were a purely Eurocentric fabrication, an inside job for the Holy Roman Empire, with no impact on distant civilizations. But if that is so, what does it say about our faith in the integrity of history's tapestry? By now, you may wonder, who stood to gain from such a grand illusion? Otto III, enthroned at the cusp of the new millennium, sought to revive the glory of Rome through his Renovatio Imperii Romani, the restoration of the Roman Empire. Imagine his courtiers whispering that the year AD 1000 was sacred, a millennial milestone ordained by God, and that any blemish, an extra century here, a missing one there, would undermine his divine mandate. Pope Sylvester II, a scholar who introduced Arabic numerals to Europe and conversed with Islamic sages, shared Otto's vision. Together, they could rewrite time, ensuring that their calendar and their claim to power aligned perfectly with cosmic cycles and theological symbolism. But absolute power in history's narrative is a precarious thing. Every time an archaeologist excavates a Roman bathhouse or an astronomer recalculates a medieval eclipse, the phantom time hypothesis teeters on the brink of collapse. Each coin unearthed, each dendrochronological sample, each Chinese log, and each Islamic treatise serves as a tether, anchoring us to reality. And yet, every so often, a new puzzle piece emerges. A newly discovered manuscript, a radiocarbon test that yields an unexpected date, or an inscription in a remote cathedral that simply shouldn't be there. These anomalies remind us that history is never settled. It is a living conversation between past and present, between the stones beneath our feet and the stories we tell. So as you stand once more before that cathedral doorway, candlelight dancing across your face, ask yourself, who wrote the dates carved into these stones? Whose hand inscribed the annals we accept as truth? And if 300 years could be stolen in the dark of night, what else might history hide? In the end, the phantom time hypothesis does more than challenge a timeline. It invites us to become active participants in the unfolding story of humanity, to question every date, every text, and every assumption. Because perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: time, like memory, is a fragile thing, crafted by human hands, subject to error, and ever in need of our scrutiny. And so we close not with answers, but with an invitation. Dare to question, and you may find that the past is far more mysterious and more human than you ever imagined.